Hey everyone, this is going to be a lesson on how to write a science-related thesis statement, specifically for the Science Gateway. The first question you have to ask yourself, what is a thesis? You have learned this before, but a thesis statement is the position a student is going to take or the argument that is going to be made. In the case of the science, it's going to be the answer to the question that is being asked. What is not a thesis? A thesis statement is not a fact. You are not going to pull something from the information given to you. All right, it's going to be the answer to your question. The thesis statement is not an opinion either. It is going to be related to a specific problem you solve or calculation you make. All right, the thesis is going to be based around your prior knowledge and judgment of you as the student in the field. If you don't understand the prompt, the thesis will not be good. All right, so we need to make sure that we break down the prompt. If you don't feel like answering the prompt, just do it. Answering the prompt will ensure a fair score, all right? And answering the prompt with good or great thesis statements ensure a much higher score. Remember, your thesis statement is your roadmap to your essay. The importance of understanding the prompt cannot be stressed enough, all right? A lot of times you guys want to read the question really quickly, and that's not going to allow you to perform well on the specific writing tasks, okay? So rather than just breezing through the prompt, we want you to take time, all right? Circle, underline, mark through, and figure out what is it that you are actually doing. If you don't have a good thesis statement in your essay, the rest of it is probably going to be pretty all over the place. All right, so you should break it down like this. You should start by circling the task. Okay, do you have to analyze, assess, compare, calculate? All right. Next, underline the science subject or the content. All right, for our purposes today, we're going to be talking about density and recycling. And then you'll want to go through and find any materials or formulas that you'll need in order to answer the question completely. Next, you want to brainstorm the information you're going to need to answer the prompt. So are you going to have to calculate something? Are you going to have to graph something? You're going to want to plan ahead the order that your paper is going to be written. Then you're going to write a thesis statement that demonstrates the argument and the topics to come. Double check that your thesis answers all of the parts of the prompt before you start. If you answer just part of the prompt, you're not going to be able to get your full points. All right, a good thesis is narrow, but not really too narrow. All right, a well-written thesis statement should be something that you can address in 30 minutes. Now you're sitting here saying, but the gateway is 125 minutes. Yes, but we want you to plan, draft, and write a final draft, okay? And even edit. Now, some of your teachers may tell you not to write a rough draft, which is fine. You should do what they say, but you should also do what works for you. In general, though, you want to talk about a thesis statement that you can cover in 30 minutes. All right, but you don't want it to be so narrow that it prevents you from writing relevant things, all right, or that you ignore big evidence. If your thesis statement is too broad, you might go in a bunch of different directions and not stick to the prompt. And therefore, the grader will think that what you're saying is unrelated and you will lose points. All right, we're going to try with a simple teenage problem. Asher and Melissa broke up last week after having dated for just over a year. Both appear heartbroken and both are claiming that the breakup was not their fault. All right, so this would be an example of your background that you're going to get. All right, we see a few important pieces that they both appear heartbroken. All right, so the writing task is to analyze the causes of their breakup to form a conclusion about which of them, if either, was more at fault in causing the relationship to fail. All right, so we see the word analyze. That's important. Okay, you're going to have to look at all the facts presented in the documents and then explain who was more at fault. All right, we want to know the causes. So this is where we're going to want you to narrow it down to some specific reasons behind the breakup. And then from there, determine if someone was more at fault and ultimately what caused the relationship to fail. All right, so on a fun one, that's how we break it down. Now we're going to look at our specific writing task that is going to be related to your science practice gateway that you will do in your language arts class. All right, so the writing task is to construct an explanation that identifies the type of plastic collected and whether it can be recyclable at the local recycling center. In your essay, you want to be certain too, all right, these 3 bullet points make up your 3 body paragraphs. Using document A and B, calculate the density of the plastic collected and predict the density of the ocean water. Second, you want to identify the plastic collected and indicate if it would sink or float in the ocean. Justify your reasoning. Last, you want to create an argument about whether the plastic would be accepted for recycling at the local recycling center. All right, so a couple important words we want to look at. All right, and I'm going to exit out of here so I can get some of my drawing tools. All right, so the first thing we see is calculate. That's the first thing I notice. All right. Now I know they also tell us what I'm just going to underline things. They also tell us what documents to use. Okay, so I'm automatically know, and I'm feeling good that I know where to go look. Okay, I'm going to have to calculate something. All right, so that means I'm going to have to do math. Okay, so I'm going to need some numbers here. The density of the plastic collected and predict the density of the ocean water. All right, so I'm going to circle this because I'm like, oh, density, that's the subject. I know what I'm doing with density. Hooray, I learned density in Miss Hersey's class. All right, or whatever your chemistry class is, and you're feeling excited. All right, the next paragraph, I will identify the plastic collected. All right, so that means I'm going to have to actually say the name of the type of plastic. And then indicate if it's going to sink or float. Then I'm also going to have to justify my reason. So not only am I going to have to name the plastic and say whether it's going to sink or float, but I'm also going to have to justify, which means back up my reasoning as to why. And then the last bullet point, create an argument about whether the plastic would be accepted for recycling at the local recycling center. All right, so I'm going to have to say an argument means there's two sides. All right, so that means we have yes or no. All right, yes, it can be recycled, or no, it can't be recycled. All right. Now, you don't have the documents in front of you right now, but you will later, and I can go ahead and tell you that they give you a chart with the melting point of different types of plastic, and that's how you're going to argue for it. All right? So given this breakdown, what I want you to do at this point is pause your video, okay? And I want you to construct just a rough draft of what you think your thesis statement would look like for this essay. All right, now I'm not going to give you an example because, let's be honest, a bunch of you would just copy my example. All right, but I want you to go ahead and try it on your own.